This is a video on how to use the tendering system. We're going to create a test tender project and then show you from this menu item all the different features within this tendering menu. We're going to create a new project. We'll give it a name, Test Tendering 003. We'll say Test Tendering System 003, and we'll give it a code 003. We'll set up the project supplementary details very quickly. We'll just so we have some information. Test project. We'll set a client, and I'm just going to quickly run through and save some details for this particular project. We'll feed in a principal agent, and we will feed in, let's say, an architect, architect, save. We'll add in a quantity surveyor, and what we must just do for the contract data is tell it where we want this architect to be listed. So we're going to say is listed as number position 1. So I think that is important. Save. We'll add a quantity surveyor. If it does go grey, just let it refresh. Quantity surveyor. QS consultant, save, and we'll set that as number 2. Add details, select position number 2, save. We'll add, now because we're using the tendering system, we're not going to populate a principal contractor or subcontractors. This would be for users that are not using the tendering system. So we're not going to use this. We're going to see, do we need an arbitrator? Yes, it says nominated by, so it would want something there. Save. You don't have to. I'm just checking to see, do we need a mediator? There's no yellow J, so there's nothing needed there. Everything else is in. Let's just give it some other information. South Africa, whatever it may be, South Africa. Save. So now we're going to go into the eDocs tendering system, either from there or the menu from there, and we then, the first place to go to is to set up My Tenderers. So we click on My Tenderers, and you will notice work groups that are available, that are listed in the standard system across each of these different work groups. So let's assume we're going to go through a tender process for a principal contractor. So we would then tell the system that we're looking to add principal contractors to this particular project. So we would then go down to principal contractors, and we would add, let's say, 2 principal contractors to this list. So how do we do that? We say, let's say, test principal contractor 1 Pty Ltd, and we say save. We go back to My Tenderers, we go back to principal building, and we're going to add test principal contractor 2 Pty Ltd. Save. And if we go back to My Tenderers, and if we look at the list of who we have under principal contractors, I'm going to just delete these. Let's just assume they don't exist. They've just been there previously from previous projects. So I'm going to just remove them as if so they're not there. Let's just remove Wilson Bailey, and we'll remove, we'll say delete. And Wilson Bailey, delete. So we've added these two tenderers as principal contractors. We haven't told the system that they're tendering on this project yet, this project being Test Tendering System 003, but we're just setting it up so that we have, for this project and for all future projects, we are defining who our tenderers are. So if we wanted to define, let's just say some tenderers, subcontractors, selected or nominated subcontractors for aluminium works, we would select the correct work group. So in this case, we would select aluminium. Where would we find aluminium? Windows and doors. Select it somewhere, it's listed here. Glazing, ironmongery, metalwork, aluminium, under metalwork, aluminium windows and doors. And we would then give a particular subcontractor, allocate a subcontractor to that work group. Test, aluminium, subcontractor 1, whatever it may be, PTY, LTD. And we say save, and it will bring, add, under my tenderers, it will have added that tenderer under aluminium. Now, what we need to do is to these two, we need to populate the details associated to these subcontractors. So we say add address details, and we need to now populate all of this information. So if we don't want to waste time and we can streamline the process, what we can do is we can put in the email address of the tenderer, and what it will do is give us an option. If it goes gray, just let it refresh. Just go back to refresh it. And then click the button alongside to send to that email address to that person so that they can populate those details. It saves you then having to populate those details. So I can actually do that. Send update details. You're about to send an invitation to that email address for them to populate their details. So I'm going to do that, and it will just give you the option to put in a custom message. Please can you populate as a matter of urgency for the tender as discussed, whatever we want to say, and we say done editing, and we then say send email, and that will go to that particular person so that they can update the details. As those details are updated, it's already in our system, and we will be notified of those details being updated. So I'm just going to send, update, and that email has been sent. So that's the principle. We need to obviously, why do we want the details? Because the more information is populated at this level, when it comes to creating the tender documents, being the contract data, those details will automatically get sucked in and populated into the documents. So it's going to save you a lot of time and effort in creating these documents. Same principle, if we wanted to populate details, you can do it manually, save, or feed in an email address and then invite that person. Now what you can do is, in some cases, let's say we want to go out to a third principal building contractor, and we don't necessarily know who. What we can do is we can type in here principal building contractors, and if there are any listed listed suppliers or contractors or subcontractors under this work group, the system will display that information. So here's an example. Here is a paid advertiser, you can call it that, where they offering their services for, this is Jurasich Brothers Construction, there's a website, there's an email address, what provinces they're active in, what type of work they are available to provide services in. And if I like the look of who, and maybe giving these guys an opportunity to tender, then I will say add to my tenderers. So I say add to my tenderers, and it will go, if I go back to my tenderers, it will have added those details, and you'll notice that all the details are listed with that particular provider. So that is one of the features of the tendering system, is that if you're looking for additional providers and you like the look of who you, and you've looked at their websites and you've maybe made contact and you want to invite them, it simplifies that process. So we now have 3 tenderers that are listed here. I could have 10, but when it comes to setting up my tenderers, I may want to use 3 or 4 of the 10 that are listed there. The benefit being that is that we're building up a database of the same, generally the same service providers under these work groups. And usually that is the case. You tend to work with the same companies over and over, and every now and then you'll add an extra 1 or 2, but you have a database of the same suppliers that you tend to use across projects for easy tendering. So we are now in my tenderers. We haven't set up the tendering. That is what we're going to do now. So if we click on my tenderers, we're now going to go to principal contractor tenderer setup, and we're going to now define, by telling the system who do we want to tender for this project. We're going to click and we're going to select them from the list. So we only have 3, and I'm going to select all 3. Save. It should bring them in. Let's just bring the next one in. Test 2, save. And the next one, test PC1, sorry, PC1, save. Okay, and it adds them to the list. So in this case, we've got the 3 that have been set up. We can still invite them again if we feel maybe that information has changed, or maybe it has changed since you last put them into your tenderer list. We can check the details. So if we go add address details, nothing's changed, but let's assume those details have been populated. You do want to have these details populated. If we were busy with a tender for subcontractors, then we would go to subcontractors, we would click on select a tenderer, and it will bring in whoever we're busy dealing with. So in other words, if we look at aluminium, there is that aluminium that I've just added, and there are 3 aluminium providers that are listed under my aluminium windows and doors. So for in this case, we're not dealing with a subcontractor, we're just dealing with a principal contractor. And what we want to then do is we're getting to a stage of now we want to create the contract data documents. Before moving into the creation of the tender data, the contract data documents, I just want to go back into the menu items. So if we look at tendering, we've got my tenderers, which we've dealt with, which is where we set up. If you want to move quickly to set up tenderers, you can do so from there. I'm just going to work from the main menu so you're familiar. If we want to set up a tenderer, that's exactly what we've just done. It takes us to the page where we set up the tenderer. It's exactly the same place. If we want to create a tender document, which is what we're going to do now, we click on create a tender document. That's where we physically create the document, and we'll go through that exercise shortly. And the last option in that drop down is the contractors or subcontractors company listing. So these are where we have, for each of the different work groups, red meaning we do not have an associated listed company. Black would be, so if we look at Access Flooring, or if we're looking at a principal building contractor as we looked and we say search, these are listed companies that have chosen to make their details available for use by users on their projects. If we look at a different one, for example, Access Flooring, search, there is a company there that has been, or there are two cases, two that have been listed in this case. So let's just go back. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to setup tenderers. That's where we were. And we're going to now go to the point where we want to create a tender document for this project. So we click create tender document, and we've got two options available. We have what we call access document bundles. A bundle is a cheaper way of buying multiple documents. For example, you will decide how many subcontractors or how many tenderers do I have. So if I have 5, you would buy a bundle of 5. The more you buy, the cheaper they become. So you're buying a bundle of 5, or if you're buying for subcontractors, it could be 15 or 20, you would buy 20, and you're paying a much lower price on an individual basis for those contract datas than you would if you were buying one by one. Alternatively, if you don't want to go the document bundle route, you can just select the document that you want from this list. So you could just go and say it's a principal building contract data document, and you would say create new document and purchase in the normal fashion. If I'm going to use the document bundles, that's what I'm going to use in this particular example. We're going to say purchase a tender document bundle. We click on that button. We select what we're after. So we want 5 principal building contract datas. That's what we want. And it's edition 6.2. That's what we're paying for 5. And we then say purchase bundle. Now we have available 5 bundles, and what we then do is we then say create documents, and it will deduct each time we create one, it will deduct it off the 5. So we'll have 4 and say created 1 available. So we've got 5 available, that will become 4 available. Create document, same principle, and it's going to now give us the choice. We've got 3. So we're going to go and do this process 3 times. So we're going to select, let's just say test PC1. We're just going to say 001. That is going to be the front page of this contract data document. We're not going to copy yet. I'll show you what we're going to do. That's going to be for the second and third. We then say purchase. We say view and edit online. Creates the document, and we're then going to open the document to view it. You'll see what it does is it says to us it's a tender document. So we're going to be able to differentiate between tender contract datas and those agreements, which would then agreements that are actually being used or appointed would then say no. So at this stage it is a tender document. We're going to open the document. We're going to view and edit. We're going to then populate in its entirety. And then what we will do once it's complete, we are going to use that to copy for the second and third. So we don't have to go and populate all the information over and over again. I'm not going to go through, but this is basically scroll through and populate all the fields, reference number, works description, whatever you need to populate. You will run through and feed in. You'll see this is where it brings in the information directly into the document. It brings in the client, and it will bring in the agent. Remember, we added a quantity surveyor, and we added an architect that sucks in all of that data. And that is the benefit of populating prior to the creation of the document. You'll then continue, and obviously if you had added any other agents, it would have populated. You'll populate all of this information, and you will get this to a document that you are 100% happy. As you are happy with this, then we're going to use this document as the basis to create the second and third. You'll notice when it comes to the tenderers details, I hadn't populated, but this information would automatically be populated into the document. So once you've finished, you'll then say save this document, and assuming you've completed all the fields, I'm now going to show you how you would then copy this to the second and third. Close this window. Would you like to open this? I'm just going to say, it doesn't matter. No, I'm just going to minimize that. We don't need that. You will notice now, if we just get an updated screen, that is now revision 2. What we're going to do now is we're going to say create a new document. So we want to use the bundle. We don't want to go and, so we must go and say create new document. But we're going to use the bundles because we've got 4 remaining bundles. And we don't want to use the, we can do it from here because there it is, there are the bundles. You will see there are 4 left, and we say create document. This is now, we're going to now create the document for the second principal contractor. Just going back, it's probably the best way to do this is because it's a tender document, you want to use this feature here, create tender documents. So you can do it, there are options from within the tender setup, but the other option is say create tender document, and then we're going to go back to the bundle option. We're going to say access the document bundle, and we're going to create from that. That is the best place to do it. And you will then be given the option to select test PC2 as the second. We'll call that 002. And what we do want to do now is copy document to copy from. We want to select that document that we've just created. So if we look at our name, we have called this test tendering system. That's the name of our project. So when we're looking, we want to go down to test tendering system 003. There it is. So just to show you, test tendering system 003. That is what we've just created. Let's find it. Test tendering system 03. And there is the document that we just created, revision 2, and the date and time. So we're going to select that document, and we're going to say create this new document using that as a basis, saving you having to recreate all those fields. View and edit online. Click OK, and it brings in the second. There it is, which is the later one. There is 1, there is 2, 1638, 1642. It'll put the latest. We then click on the document and we open it. And obviously you shouldn't need to change too many details. Just open it, check, but all of the details should be then there. It is the returnable document that the tenderer is going to complete where he submits his price. To do the third document, we're just going to say create tender document. We're then going to go back to our bundles. We're going to say create a document bundle. You'll see we've got 3 left. We've used 2, 3 to go. Create document bundle. We're now going to go to the third one, which is Jurassic 3, and we're going to copy from the same project. So now we can copy either, doesn't really matter. Let's just say we want to copy from 002, the one we've just created, purchase document, view and edit online, and it will then reflect the third. There it is. So there are 3. Now, at some point, these 3 tenderers are going to submit. We have the tendering vault system, which is another video that we will show on how we can use the vault system to actually go out to tender. But let's assuming you're just using it at this level purely just to create your documents, and you go through your normal tendering system manually and you're not using the vault. At some point you do want to appoint one of these 3 once you've been through the process of adjudication, and you decide, let's just say it is principal building contractor, this number PC1. What we then do is we go back to the tenderer setup and we tick off alongside the one that has tick to appoint tenderer, and we tick off the one that we are going to appoint. We tick it. It says, you're about to appoint. yes, appoint. It gives us the opportunity to send out a standard email to that, which we haven't done yet, but there is an option if you want to send an appointment email notification to that particular contractor, and at the same time it will convert that yes to a no, so we now know that it's no longer a tender contract data. And that document can then go through signing, and the next step in the process would be preparing a principal building agreement for that particular successful tenderer, and that agreement will be then recorded in the system. So the next video will show you how you then take the tender system into the tender vault. How do we use the vault? That is using this vault as a means to invite your tenderers, where they access the documentation and then they submit the documentation back into that vault, where it is locked until a certain opening date or time, and at that point certain people are invited to access the documents that have been uploaded by those tenderers. That is the video that will follow. If you want to just view your tender documents, you can click that button, it takes you back again to this screen. You can go and click on update details. That's the project. These are the 3 tender documents that have been created.